What is going on, my friends? Welcome to the Storm Code. So, if you're new, because the podcast is new, this is a podcast that is all about demystifying the human experience and learning how to live as a soul in a human body, as difficult or as challenging that may seem. So, if you're new, hey boo, my name is Stormie Calder. Some of you know me as Emelina. And I am a consciousness expert, a psychic medium, a high performance coach, and a shaman, helping to Sherpa your human experience and guide you to navigate a happy, healthy, and soul driven, love fueled life. Now, I can't guarantee that I won't swear or say anything racy. So, this is rated as an explicit podcast. So, go ahead and get your headphones if you've got kids in the room or anything like that. And we will jump right in here. So, I'm ridiculously excited to get you a second episode. This is a thing, and I'm stoked about it. And also excited for the different sorts of content that I'll be producing over here as opposed to my YouTube channel. And if you have not found me on YouTube yet, that is where you can find me by searching I Am Woke, where I post a lot about energy updates and energetic themes that are going on week to week. And as another quick announcement here, for Cyber Week, I have launched a 30-day meditation experience or meditation challenge called the Joyride. And I really, really think you're going to love this. It's essentially a 30-day meditation album. We're going to be starting on December 1st, but whenever you enroll, you'll get dripped the content. And I'm going to be giving you a 5 to 15-minute meditation every single day for 30 days to help you tap into the experience of focusing your mind, your heart, and your energy towards the alignment of positive thinking, towards joy, and towards expansion. So, why 30 days? Well, here's the deal, guys. Scientifically, it's proven that it takes 28 to 30 days to create a habit. Now, what's a habit? A habit is a thing where your mind goes into autopilot around a specific type of thinking, acting, or being. It's about setting alignment into the subconscious mind so it becomes automatic. That's a habit. So, there's a few things going on here. With 28 to 30 days, we're creating the habit of meditation. We're creating the habit of positive mental focus in your mind, in your heart, and in your energy. And we're creating the habit of focusing towards joy, focusing on the lighter side of life. And for those of you that don't know, joy is quite literally scientifically one of the highest vibrational emotions and energetic experiences that we can possibly emanate as a human. So, with the intention in practicing your alignment of vibrating with the frequency of joy, through meditation experiences daily for 30 days, you are practicing being in a vibrational state of joy. And for those of you that don't know, it only takes 17 seconds to 20 seconds to start building a positive emotional momentum in order to manifest something that you're looking for. So, we're going to be focused on 5 to 15 minutes of focusing your mind, body, and soul into the direction of creating an emotional harmonic experience around joy, which is going to build the momentum through your day, through 30 days. The time all stacks, and it's going to help you manifest whatever it is you're looking to manifest in your life from the position of prioritizing joy, which is to prioritize a high vibrational existence and high vibrational experience. My intention here is for it to feel very, very effortless for you. It should feel so effing easy. Okay. So, that's the long or short-winded scoop, depending on your perspective. But the Joyride can be found on my website. I will leave a link in the show notes. It's imemelina.com/joy-ride. And you can get a hold of the 30-day meditation album there with some wonderful Black Friday Cyber Week discounts for the week. And without further ado, thank you for listening. Let's jump right in here. So, what I want to talk about in this episode is I want to explore, well, a few things. First thing I want to say is this is always an exploration with me. We're exploring consciousness, we're exploring thinking, and we're exploring different metaphysics and spirituality and psychology. So, as always, take what you love, leave the rest. It is important to have your own personal discernment to know what's right for you and what's not. Now, jumping in, I really want to get into developing and understanding psychological flexibility, and helping you to move away from black and white thinking. And this is all about expanding how you think and expanding your consciousness. And what I really like about this topic is that typically in spirituality, we think about, let me think about how to say this. It's like in spirituality, we think about spirituality as having a certain amount of metaphysics, a certain amount of rules. It often gets grouped into the religious category. And the way that I break down spirituality and the way that I want you to perceive it when you're with me is that I think about it more as in terms of consciousness philosophy. So we're exploring the philosophical dynamics of psychology and understanding how psychology works both mentally in the heart space, because there is heart-based psychology, as well, how the heart thinks and how the heart beats and speaks through us. And then the energetics of the psychic development and reading, you know, that's like another layer of the consciousness. I like to be able to blend all of these different components of the self to understand them. I almost want to say philosophically, but it's really like a mind, body, soul experience because the body's got a whole lot of very sensual, intuitive, primal, and immediate understanding of circumstances as well. So let's jump right into understanding psychological flexibility. Why am I even tackling this topic? Because what I find, whether it's in spirituality or otherwise, most people tend to live in a very polarized black and white thinking. And I want to tell you why I'm tackling this is because it leaves you open to psychological manipulation. If you're a type of person, and absolutely no ill on you if this is you, don't judge yourself. But if you are the type of person that tends to think in terms of black and white and cannot see the in between yet, or struggles to hold two opposite polarities in their mind and in their heart without embracing the light in a way where it says the dark can't exist, or without living in the dark in a way that says the light can't exist. All of it's real. When you think in terms of black and white and you can't read the gray or can't hold two patterns of thinking, two dualities at the same time in your mind and in your consciousness, you leave yourself open to psychological manipulation. I think this is a really important topic because I think when people assume black and white thinking, it feels really good because you're taking on a polarity and you feel the strength of whatever it is you think, and you assume that that makes you strong. But here's the thing, anyone that has a level of psychological mastery can use that power that you have within that black and white thinking for psychological manipulation. A lot of people do this unknowingly. A lot of people have their shadows that are working to manipulate the people around them. And I'm more taking just kind of a heady esoteric umbrella view right now of this, just to share with you that just because you have a strong opinion in a black and white concept doesn't mean that you are flexible enough to actually be able to defend your mind against any level of mind hackers. And if you think that's not real, I encounter them on a very, very regular daily basis. Essentially, anyone that is playing mind games, power games, manipulation tactics, which, hello, welcome to humanity. It's probably at least 90% of the population. You are open to and susceptible to some level of psychological manipulation or programming that is against your will in the dark. Some of it is unintentional, a lot of it is intentional. Generally speaking, people know when they're playing power games or mind games. But with all of that, I want to give you some tools and some knowledge so that you can essentially work with black and white concepts, move into the gray in between, and develop a certain level of self defense with acceptance that multiple polarities can exist at the same time so that you can see in someone in front of you the red flags and the green flags simultaneously to understand that they might be a bright and loving human and have very detrimental traits. And when you can see the entire picture, You really allow yourself to navigate this world from a place of safety because you're working from a state of mental agility and mental flexibility. And that's essentially what I would say psychological flexibility is. It's a mental flexibility. It's being able to assess the present moment, whatever is presenting itself to you in people's characters in front of you, and regardless of your own personal bias and what you think and feel about the world or the person you're dealing with, or what people that look like this person should do or shouldn't do, or what you should do or shouldn't do based on previous and past behaviors. It's your ability to assess the current moment to remain safe. And if you're psychologically safe, generally speaking, you're safe across the board. Um, you know, when we get locked up psychologically, we get locked up energetically, we get locked up emotionally. Now, what is a psychological lockup? If somebody can confuse you to the point where you can't get out of your head, they now control your mind. And that's something I'm not bringing up to incite any level of fear. And you guys know this about me generally. I like to bring awareness to certain topics and concepts so that you can realize what you don't know. And something I contemplate a lot is what I don't know, or like what you don't know can hurt you and often will hurt you. Now, we can invoke a lot of spiritual protection. I do on the daily, and spirit works overtime for me, as I'm sure spirit works overtime for many of you to keep us protected. But what's beautiful is if we can exercise and understand and expand our consciousness to the degree that we are willing to be psychologically flexible, we are actually more protected because our mind is protecting us in the moment, and as well as the spiritual mind or the divine mind that we fall back on. So I guess what I want to bring some attention to here is bringing your mind in alignment to understanding psychological flexibility and the relationship to your own mastery, how you think, what you feel in your own personal consciousness, and the other people around you that you may be following. Perhaps they're leaders, perhaps they're people with power or influence over you, and then understanding your own influence over others. Something that I've been really contemplating a lot recently is that psychological mastery, consciousness mastery, is a weapon. Right? When we think about consciousness expansion, my spirit guides always show me a sword. They explain it to me as a sword, and they remind me that I am carrying a sword in my energy and in my mind, that a sword can be used for defense or a sword can be used for offense, but it is a weapon. And it's important to understand that when you are commanding spiritual, energetic, and psychological mastery, that you are carrying a weapon. Now, transparently, part of the reason why this has been brought up to my mind is that I encountered someone recently that was in a level of psychological mastery and tried to use that in a way to influence me to do something I would never do. And what I realized is they didn't realize that psychological mastery is a weapon. So they weren't taking responsibility over it being a weapon. They thought they were just, I don't know, without describing anything in detail, it's like they thought they were just playing, but it's an actual weapon. Like, a gun is a gun, a sword is a sword, a knife is a knife. If you're going to carry some sort of a quote weapon, and I put it in quotes because this is psychological, then you have to be mindful that to carry a weapon is to invite attack, it is to invite defense. It is also to carry a significant amount of accountability and responsibility for anything that happens to you or around you because you have a weapon on you. Now, in this case, that weapon is our energetic mastery. It is a psychological mental mastery. And some of that mental mastery is like, it's not all the brain mentally. A lot of it is intuition. And I think people don't understand that if you have a very, very high degree of psychic development, if you have a high degree of intuition that you might not even be calling psychic, it might just be your primal awareness and you're very aware. That awareness is power over others and over circumstance. And when you are carrying power, which can be weaponized, you have to be mindful of that power. Now, we're going to jump into a few themes here that I think will be helpful, but a lot of you understanding, a lot of the protection in a transmission like this energetically is understanding that power and that psychology and that intuition can be weaponized. And that in itself creates a more safe matrix of thought for you where your spirit guides and your higher power and your higher self will begin to fill in the gaps for you so that you can take more responsibility over what you say and what you do over and around others. So, the first theme I want to tackle is think for yourself. Trust your point of view and your soul based perspective. It is so important to be able to think for yourself. We live in a world of sheeple. Everyone is just trying to side with whatever power is more powerful. And I frequently find, especially in the world that I'm in, this mix of spirituality, esoteric knowledge, personal development, and psychological development. I find that there are a lot of common opinions and that there isn't that much original thought. And what's really important to me is original thinking. It's something that I've cultivated since I was a child. And I really believe that we should all think for ourselves. We can take on beliefs collectively and culturally that make sense and that feel right. But my question for you is, besides what's popular thought, can you also expand your mind to exercise new thoughts for yourself and try on new ideas without getting attached to them and without making them mean too much? Are you willing to exercise your mind like you exercise your body in thought and try on different ways of thinking and believing to then discover what it is that you think? If you can think for yourself and be mentally flexible and understanding with some pretty significant mental agility, you can truly do anything. I think a lot of us are taught to create our dream life. Let me create my dream life. I'm going to manifest my best life, baby. We're taught that we can reach for our dreams, but most of us are dreaming in a tiny little golden cage. It's like what is possible in this life is so much more than we can imagine. But the issue is that most people can't imagine. They can't think for themselves. So I'm going to tackle that a little bit. I think mental agility and mental flexibility is really, really important. I would encourage you, if this is new for you, or maybe you're an expert in this, either way, to teach yourself how to think. And I don't think metaphysics and spirituality teach us how to think. And I was really contemplating this earlier today because I actually think it's something I have in spades is my ability to separate many different thoughts, try things on, understand them, and then channel in between and then have my own thoughts, regardless of what spirit wants to say, regardless of what other people want to say to me, like Stormie's got her own thoughts. And I think things that are purely me. I have made some very concrete decisions about my reality and how reality works based on my ability to be mentally agile. So, when you're teaching yourself how to think, I want to just display some areas of expertise that may be helpful for you guys. If you can read a lot of different material, digest it and understand it, you can start to think and assemble different thoughts. And yes, I'm leaving this very vague for now because I don't want to use a concrete example, but it increases your ability to be conscious. It increases your consciousness, what you think, what you believe, what is real. Another way that this can be worked through is digesting philosophy. Earlier in my life, I was honestly pretty obsessive about philosophy. And I remember hearing when I was younger that philosophy really is the ability to think. Do you understand how you think? And that's why philosophy is helpful. So I used to read many, many different schools of thoughts to then align with what is me, what do I think is, I don't know, part of the fabric of reality. Like, how do I think reality is built? And when I think about my spirituality and my esotericism, if that's a word, a lot of it actually was built off of philosophical thinking. I love Plato. I love Socrates. I used to read a lot about postmodernism and existentialism. And when I think about me being like much younger, I realized that my spiritual thinking was actually built off of philosophical thinking and was built off of psychology and being able to think and understand the behaviors of the human mind, the behaviors of my mind, and then to be creative and understanding like what do I think, how do I feel about it, how do other people think. If I were to debate what makes sense to me, what makes sense to others, what's logical, what's not, well, it all depends on your frame of reference, your reality, and whether or not that reality is the same reality that someone else is working within. And I would say this is getting very esoteric, but it's also very philosophical. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And call me crazy, but I don't really trust people that don't have opinions. I'm like, if you can't think for yourself, I can't trust anything you have to say as being authentic and honest. That's just my personal opinion. There are too many sheeple in this world, and it's like everybody's trying to mimic what the last person said that was popular in order to make money, essentially, or gain value with the masses, and I just don't trust it. I'm like, I just want to know what's real and whether or not it makes like real sense, not based in external validation. Like the more people that validate it, the more meaningful it is. If you've got hundreds of thousands of followers, it must mean that your opinion's important. I'm like, no. Your opinion is important if I can relate to it. It's all very relative to me. But, I don't think that just because a lot of people think in a certain way that that is something that is the truth is what I'll say, or is authentic even. There's just a lot of step and repeat thinking, especially with social media. We're all thinking in like almost the same way. And just because a lot of people think in certain terms doesn't mean that those thoughts or that POV or that frame of reference actually makes any sense. It just means that it's popular and well validated. And if I have learned anything across my life, it is that concepts that are often well validated and have tons of opinion backing them, meaning like they reach mass market appeal, I tend to be more concerned about that because people are sheeple. And if there are a lot of people backing a certain opinion, I essentially assume that it's overpopularized and that it's likely not real. So, I mean, I already gave you the riot act at the beginning here. Take what you love, leave the rest. This is an exploration. I love exploring consciousness and I love being able to change my mind with mental flexibility and fluidity. So, that's the topic today. So, I expect you to be mentally agile. And if you disagree with me, go write it out in your journal. Kudos to you. I would celebrate you that you have an opinion and that you can think for yourself. And if you do agree with me on anything, wonderful as well. And same celebration. So I just think it's so much easier to bend and agree with people than it is to actually root in your own experience, take responsibility for how you think and who you are, and then stand your ground around what you think and what you believe and actually hold that belief system around other people because it tends to come off as being confrontational. Whether or not your belief system is actually confrontational, essentially, whenever you go against the system, whatever that system is, whether that system is a family unit of 4 or a friend group of 20 or an organization of 500 or the world, when you tend to think different thoughts, you become a threat to the system. So most people don't like to think for themselves because they don't want to be threatening, because they want to be safe. And if you want to be safe, the easiest way to be safe is to virtue signal and show everyone around you that you are not threatening so that you will never be preyed upon or challenged because I'm not threatening. Don't worry about me. See, I think and feel like you. And of course, I'm not going to judge any of that sort of behavior. These are behavioral patterns at the base of the human psyche and the reptilian mind to keep us safe. So it's totally understandable. When we are practicing psychological flexibility, we're practicing thinking for ourselves. Okay. Theme number 2 is know your framework and know how you choose to create your own reality. For me, this is about having a manifesto, and I do have a manifesto on my website. And I'll probably rewrite my manifesto coming up here because it's been a few years for me. But this is about having values. This is about understanding your values, understanding your virtues, understanding who you are. When the door is closed, you're alone at home, you're in the dark. Like, how do you act when people are watching you? And how do you act when no one is watching you? When it's just you and God? What are your values? And when I say framework, what's beautiful about knowing your framework is it's knowing who you are. And as wonderful as that statement is, I'm like, "Hey, go get to know yourself. Go know who you go know who you are." That would honestly cause an existential crisis in most of the population. The far majority of people absolutely do not know who they are. And most of us don't really understand who we are until we get into our late 30s, 40s, 50s. And then hopefully, by some grace of God, if we've been doing our work, we'll start to really understand who we are truly at our core, because it does take a certain amount of life experience to understand your preferences, understand the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you behave, and why you behave those ways, and making an active choice with intention to behave in a way that you prefer because you have decided that it is who you are. It's not just a rote memorized pattern of collective thinking or habitual behaviors that were taught to you. Again, going back to our theme number 1, learning how to fucking think for yourself. Right? So that framework I find is really, really important because if you don't know who you are, you're not going to know how to act in this world. If you don't know how to act in this world, then you have to essentially rely on other people's thoughts and opinions and behaviors to feel safe. So you feel safe through external validation. You feel safe through aligning your power to other people, generally speaking, that are more powerful than you, so that you can be protected under their own umbrella of power. Now, change is real and change is constant. Change or be changed. There is absolutely nothing in between. Um, Something I picked up when I was like 12, I don't know. I was very young. I was a kid. Is that I remember adults around me would talk about change and hating change and we don't want things to change. And I remember just this spontaneous awakening moment where I looked at them and I said, but that doesn't make any sense because everything is always changing. Nothing ever stays the same. Everything is always moving. And I don't think those adults appreciated that from me. That's one of those like God moments where God speaks through children. Um, but I made a decision in that moment where I was like, I think I'm just going to do my best to embrace change every moment that I can, no matter how it hurts, because I saw the adults around me thinking and feeling in such a rigid way and hating change so much. But change is the single thing we can rely on, it is the single constant. So I was like, well, why don't I align my reality to what is the constant truth as opposed to hating and then fighting reality? Which is much harder to do. You really need to understand who you are and your framework and how you think and believe and why, because that's the constant. You are your constant. Your framework is your constant. It is how you see reality. It is your, I want to say, like an inflexible point of view. It's the point of view that is you, it's your personal authenticity. It's the constant when reality is shifting under your feet. When change comes in as a storm and wipes out everything you previously once knew, whether it's the relationships that you had, the job, you know, these big tower moments and crises people go through, the dark nights of the soul, like it's going to happen. It happens to everyone. It's just a matter of time before your life turns totally upside down at some point because change is a constant and the change isn't always good. And that's something we have to embrace as humans. It'll always be good long term if you believe that, but ultimately, we can't control things outside of ourselves. What you can control is who you are in your own personal framework of how you think, feel, and believe. So that when reality shifts under your feet and you wonder, oh shit, I thought reality was having this home and having this job and having my family look this way and everything being perfect with my little white picket fence or my followers on Instagram or whatever the hell it's going to be now in this day and age. When that reality changes, In order for you to stay sane, you need to have a structure of reality that is not based in external validation. What is that? It is you. It is your personal authenticity. And if you don't take the time to develop your framework of who you are, when change comes, and it will come, when the storm comes, and it will come, if it is not already on top of you as a constant, you will be battling with an existential crisis about whether or not you should live, whether or not your life is valuable, um, and how you create value in this world, because everything that was valuable to you as external validation got topped on its freaking head. It got turned over. It creates huge existential crises in people. One of the things that I really am a master at is being able to navigate change and crisis and intervention and really difficult circumstances. And I certainly don't invite them at this point. Here's what I'll say. I am so psychologically flexible and mentally flexible that I can navigate away from it quickly before anything becomes a level of crisis, because I am taking in the red flags and the green flags ahead, which allows me to plan ahead, which allows me to understand better and make the changes before I ever reach that level of crisis. And I've been in so many different crises through my life. And because of the work I do as a life coach, as a spiritual coach, I'm holding space for people's existential crises. It's just part of the territory. And what I'll say is that it's less of a crisis and it's more of an exploration when you understand who you are and you're willing to put in the time to develop your character of knowing who you are, knowing your virtues, your values, and creating your own personal manifesto. No, it does not make you an egomaniac if you have a manifesto. Now, where did I get that from? Well, a lot of my career was in personal branding. And I did a lot of brand consulting and brand coaching. And manifestos are an incredible way of rallying people towards your cause, towards your brand, towards your values, because people don't understand who you are without you openly sharing your values. And a manifesto really opens that up. I pretty much would encourage everyone to write their own personal manifesto on how they personally think, feel, and act, because it allows you to bring yourself into alignment with your own framework of reality. And if you have your own framework of reality, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, then when life falls apart around you, you will always feel stable and sane to the best of your ability. Truly, I promise it does work without giving more specifics on that. You know, no matter what is going on around me, I've taken on the name Stormie for a reason. The storm is constant, you guys. It's all over. I never escape it. I'm always super stable. Emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, because I have a framework that I have built for myself in reality. Now, a lot of us spiritual practitioners, spiritual leaders, people that are expanding their consciousness at rapid rates, um, we're always going to the void and then back to creation matrix. We're always going in between them, meaning that the sharper you get in your consciousness, the more expansive you think and feel and understand, the more aspects of reality that you understand and open yourself up to, the less that seems real. So you, in order to come back into your own framework, when you're no longer relying on the matrix of collective thought that is created by the collective consciousness, you then have to solidify your own personal consciousness to be so structured in who you are that when you expand, you don't leave yourself. Now, what's another way of me tackling that? You know, some people will go on mushroom trips or acid trips and like never come back mentally, or they expand their mind so quickly that they end up in mental institutions, or they are so understanding of the universe that they no longer remember what it is to be human and forget to pay their bills. There are many, many different aspects of what I refer to as a spiritual psychosis or spiritual madness. We all go through it. You're not going to expand your consciousness without reaching that limitation as far as what it is to think and know and believe. Like, I mean, this is the truth that my guides say to me all the time, and I truly believe it, is everything matters and nothing matters. It's all true and none of it's true. And can you hold that psychological flexibility to be able to have the space for both everything being wildly important and nothing being important at the same time? We could expand and expand and expand to the point where reality doesn't matter. Because if you continue to expand your consciousness, you will realize that we go back to the void. We really truly are all one. We are all of one sound mind. But if you hold that belief and can't also hold the belief of actually it all matters as well, then you will neglect your human experience and expand yourself to such a position and such a point of view that you will not. This is the way I always say it like this. I just think it's fun. You will not be able to quote, hold your liquor. What's the liquor? The liquor is the consciousness. Okay. So, I mean, I don't drink, you guys, but for those of you that do, I know it's a very just easy, common reference. I mean, how many of you have been out with friends, especially like when we're very adulted, and you're just like, what? Can you not even hold your liquor? Like, come on, get it together. Do you know your limits? Like, this is how I think about consciousness. I'm like, okay, sweetie pie, like, can you hold your liquor? Can you hold your consciousness? Or are you going to expand to the point where now I have to try to quote save you and hold your hair back because you had way too much to drink and you didn't even know that you couldn't handle that much? Like, if whiskey isn't something you can handle, then don't drink it. Like, what are you doing? We all have those experiences. Like, I will not drink white wine for many, many reasons. I don't drink at all, but that's a solid one for me. You always get wasted like early in your life on specific types of liquors, and then you know never to touch them again because your body doesn't like respond to certain liquors versus others. You know, it's very ironic that I'm having this conversation this way, but consciousness is kind of the same way. There are certain sorts of topics that expand your consciousness to a point where you will feel spiritually drunk, where you will be emotionally intoxicated. Okay. So, what's that territory for most people? It's the place where we start to understand that nothing matters. And that's a very delicate line to play on because when we play on the line of, well, nothing matter, we're all one, nothing matters, then we forget the individualistic self. We forget the ego. We forget what it is to have a human experience. And that lends itself to pretty significant crises. Without going into detail, just like lots of difficult psychological patterns that are very hard to get out of because essentially the way it's being shown to me is like, I don't know. My guides right now are showing it to me like you're putting your head in a toilet and like flushing it. What's like, I forget what that's called. Like when bullies do that in school. It's kind of like that. This is so silly. Um, but you need to be able to hold a frame of reference that allows you to be psychologically flexible, where you can both understand the expansion power of the universe and the expansiveness of the idea that we could be all interconnected and we could be all one, and the idea that you have an ego. That ego is to a certain degree self-protective to make sure that you don't just jump off of a fucking cliff. Right? Like, can we just be real here? You could expand to the degree through which you think everything is the same and oneness. And then, I don't know, like my guides right now are just showing me the potential of going on a crazy mushroom trip, having too much, the complete expansion of the universe and all that is, and then forgetting what it is to be human and placing yourself in quite literal harm's way. And that's something we want to avoid. I don't think most of you are going to be handling a situation like that. But again, this is a mental exploration, and I am exploring it with you. Theme number 3, what we are bringing all of this down to is developing psychological flexibility. It's accommodating, quote, reality. So, understanding what is reality. Well, my reality is I have to eat. It's really good for me to exercise. I do need some friendships. I need intimacy and people to talk to. I do have to pay my bills. There are certain things that make me feel healthy, etc. Like there are certain aspects of what it is to accommodate reality. And also to understand the expansion aspect of the mind is like, well, if nothing is quite real or nothing matters when we expand all the way out to the cosmos, then I have a lot of degree and say over what my reality could be or how I could choose to live. Like, if it really is that flexible, the oneness is flexible, then how can I be flexible in creating a reality that I want and creating a reality that I prefer? In order to do that, you have to know who the fuck you are. You can't create preference without knowing what you want. So you got to get to know what you want. I like the idea of accommodating reality without limitation. So it's like understanding, okay, I have certain accountability, certain responsibilities. Let's say those are limitations, but if I weren't limited and I could create anything, what would I create? And how would I start moving myself towards that creation? And then that is what, quote, matters. That's what I decide gets to matter for me because it's important to me. I hope this is making sense. I know this is a big topic. So, overall, what this is about is reducing black and white thinking. It's about understanding that there are many different truths that are all truths at the same time, and that you can find your path in between the truths if you think about taking the light traits, putting them in your left hand, the dark traits, putting them in your right hand, and I could say the dark traits are the red flags, the light traits are the green flags. And then you're holding them, right? You're holding one set of traits in one hand, one set of traits in the other hand. And I'm using hands to make it more visual, but this really is in your mind and in your energy. And then once you are holding each of these concepts, there is a middle point of balance. If these are scales, it's the thing in the center, the pole in the center that's holding it all together. And that's you. Those are your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings, your original thinking, your creativity. And you are moving through these two concepts, the light and the dark, the red flags and the green flags, and saying, now what do I think about it? Who am I in the middle of all of this mess? Who am I in the middle of this chaos? Who am I in the middle of this storm? We live in a very messy world. I love seeing it as a storm because I think that is what it is. And then it's about creating the path to get through based on who you are. So, as I said before, it's all true and none of it's true. It all matters and none of it matters. So, when that's true, when all of it's true, then the framework of reality is who are you? What matters to you? How do you think originally? How do you want to feel? What matters to you? What are your preferences? What do you want to create in life? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? And how do you want to step into that? So, that is my explanation for you about developing and understanding psychological flexibility and moving away from black and white thinking. Opening yourself up to your own consciousness in a way that is expansive and that allows you to stay grounded and rooted in reality so that you can use your consciousness as the quote weapon to create the life of your dreams. And the way this is being shown to me right now from my guides is you're in a jungle. That jungle is consciousness. It's the quantum. The quantum is the unknown. It is very much like a jungle. All right. And you have a machete with you in order to cut things down so that you can create a path through. That machete is your consciousness. Depending on how we use that consciousness, you could kill with it. You can hunt food with it. You could cut a path with it. You could you can create a home with it. What are you doing with your consciousness? And what you choose to do with that consciousness matters a whole lot. It matters so much. And if you understand more of the in between, releasing black and white thinking, dualistic thinking, and embracing your own fabric of reality, the framework of who it is that you are and who you decide to be and become, then you reduce any risk of psychological manipulation and getting yourself locked up in someone else's mind and someone else's energy in some sort of a dark soul contract. That no longer becomes any level of an issue. What's so funny is most of you probably don't even realize how many of those you've enrolled in and how much of an issue it truly is. I'm more just like bringing it to mind. But I think I encounter one of these dark soul contracts, these psychological manipulations, like probably weekly with different people that I run into because humanity is just mixed. And I'm not even angry about it. Sometimes I just get annoyed by it because it means I have to go into like overdrive in working through my own thoughts and feelings. But truly, it's just happening all the time because it's the world we live in. It's my hope that bringing attention to that helps you work through it and understand who you are, develop the psychological flexibility so that you can be really, really mentally agile and create a beautiful life that you actually want to live based and rooted in who you are and who you want to be. That's what I got for you guys. Thank you so, so much for joining me in today's podcast episode. If you want to learn more about me and go on the little exploration of my social medias, you can go find me on YouTube at I Am Woke. My website is stormiecalder.com and or iamemmalina.com. I've got both. And you can also find me on Instagram right now at Emmalina Calder. And I will see you on all of those platforms. Feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, I've got so much love for you, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me.